Hi everyone, how's it going? I decided to make this video because I read this book called Pretty Things by Janelle Brown, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. And what I usually do with books that I want to see reviewed is I go on YouTube and I try to see if someone that I like has already done a review about it. But it turns out that nobody's done a review of this book, or at least not a deep dive that I really liked. So I decided I might as well give it a shot. Nobody has to watch this. Please don't subscribe. So this is mostly for me. Okay, so let's talk about Pretty Little Things. I'm gonna do like a summary version where there are no spoilers, and then I'm gonna get super into it, and there's gonna be a ton of spoilers. So for the non-spoiler review, Pretty Things is a novel set in Lake Tahoe primarily, with brief like bits of it in LA, and it's a thriller, I guess, in that one of the main characters is like a con artist, and she and her con artist boyfriend go to rip off this heiress, Vanessa Liebling. And it turns out that the main character, con artist, and Vanessa have like kind of a prior connection and relationship from when the main character used to live at Lake Tahoe. And there's like some romantic drama in it a bit, but it's basically like there's some character deep dives, there's some deep dives into like late stage capitalism a bit, I guess, and then there's like the con itself and how it goes south, obviously, because like how could you write 500 pages with it just going perfectly? Um, yeah, so the like main thoughts that I had were love the setting. I love Lake Tahoe. I am a Bay Area resident. I'm not telling you where because it's the internet, and that's why I picked up this book to begin with. Even though the cover I feel leaves much to be desired, I feel like it just tells you this is a book that's like it's straight with you. It's telling you what it's gonna be like, the quality of the writing and all of that. So I didn't feel like I had really high hopes. But I do wish it had talked about Lake Tahoe a little bit more. Like, honestly, there's so much history there with the Donner Party and Donner Pass, and like all of the other things that have gone down in Lake Tahoe, and the way that it's changed from like quaint cabin getaway to like the Silicon Valley getaway that it is today. They went into it like a little bit, but honestly, they could have made it. By they, I mean Janelle Brown, who I think is she, her, but she could have made it much more spooky, or at least much more specific to Lake Tahoe. Like, honestly, just from the descriptions, I feel like it could have been any lake anywhere. So that was, kind of a bummer. The pacing I hated. So the first like 3/4 of the book is like a deep dive into everyone's character, and I felt like that was totally unnecessary and really jarring, and it like took away from the plot itself. This could have been like 250 pages shorter. I don't think anyone would have been sad about it. There was like perspective switching between Nina and Vanessa as well, which I found very jarring to the flow and pacing of the book, and like pretty annoying and not particularly valuable. So there was that. So you might ask, what would you star this? I would say 2.5 stars, maybe two, but probably 2.5, just because the writing wasn't like so bad. Um, it was mostly fine. The dialogue really straddled the line of cringe. I think that nobody talked like a real person. Like, there was like one passage that I highlighted. Let me see if I can find it, but it's like, um, oh yeah, he says, okay, see, look, we're getting somewhere already. So yeah, we'll go to Sid's, and after about 15 or 20 minutes of conversation, we'll either be bored to tears because we have nothing of interest to say to each other, in which case you'll probably make some excuse about homework and ditch me, and we'll spend the rest of the year avoiding each other in the halls because awkward, or we'll find enough to say to each other to repeat the process a second time, and perhaps a third, thereby proving all of our classmates right, at which point we'll have done our duty as responsible citizens by making them feel good about themselves, a win-win. The conversation was so heady, grown up, and frank that it was making me feel dizzy. Nina's perspective. Teenagers I knew didn't talk like this. They tiptoed around unspoken truths, blah, 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 blah. Teenagers don't talk like this because they don't use words like thereby and things like that. So, okay, sorry about that. I got distracted at the end because a coworker actually called me, so I had to pick that up. But I'm back, and we're gonna keep talking about how this book was not good. This is obviously subjective. Honestly, back up. This whole thing is obviously subjective. So please don't come at me if this is like your favorite book in the whole wide world. I'm obviously just stating my opinions, and you can think they're wrong, and I'm gonna think they're right. So it doesn't matter. But the ending was good. There were some twists. I wish we didn't have to like wade through the rest of the book to get there. Um, I also had some issues like with how things played out for the characters, but I'm gonna talk about that in like the spoilery version. So if you don't care, stay tuned, and if you do care, then you can leave. Let's get into the actual deep dive part, which I am excited for because I feel like I've just been like this book has been living in my head rent free, and I'm just ready to evict. So let's start with like just some plot issues that I had. It starts off with Nina Ross, um, and oh my god, even before we get to the plot, this was like literally the first thing that bothered me so much and just continued to bother me. The description of Nina Ross is that she's like darker colored, like is she Jewish? Is she Spanish? All of these things come up, all of these guesses. And there's this, like, on page 36, this paragraph that talks about, let's see, her mom was Italian, blah, blah, blah. I never met my grandparents who had cut her being my mom, or Nina's mom, not my mom, off entirely after she had a baby, me, out of wedlock with a Colombian poker player. And then it is literally never mentioned ever again, ever again. That's why I highlighted it, because I wanted to see, like, is this real? Is this real diversity, or is this Janelle Brown paying lip service to diversity? Because honestly, like, to all the authors and readers out there, it does not count if you just put 2 extra lines in the book for this character to then be like ethnically ambiguous and like brownish, and for other characters to wonder if she's like Jewish or Spanish or Mexican. And I'm all for diverse characters, but like you're doing a disservice to everyone if you just make the character nominally diverse without having her race influence literally anything. Literally any of her experiences, her decisions, or her choices, all of that was just thrown out the window. She was just half Colombian for like God knows why. And that's it. This is almost as bad as that Christopher Paolini book, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, where the main character's name is like Alex Rodriguez. And the only time it ever comes up is when he says that her favorite food is arroz con pollo, chicken and rice. So yeah, this was an L. That it wasn't great. So anyways, I'm so sorry, we've gotten way off the plot topic. So we start with Nina. She is pulling con on like a Russian billionaire, a Russian oligarch, and turns out that she does this all the time. And she tells us about her like sad life, and how she grew up poor, and that's why she's like a grifter and blah blah blah, and how her like mom did it because her mom doesn't even have like a high school diploma, and we have a whole sob story for her. And then we also get this other character, Lachlan, I think, and he's Irish and he grew up poor, and that's why he's a grifter. Okay, great. So Nina's mom has cancer. She is grifting to pay for the cancer meds. Her mom was in remission, but is now sick again. And there's like a new treatment. It's super expensive, blah, blah, blah. The police show up at Nina's door. her mom is like, you have to get out of here. You can't stay. They're going to get you. They're going to put you in jail. So she says, oh, like, what if we go to Lake Tahoe and scam this girl, Vanessa Liebling, who is like a billionaire heiress there, who Nina has apparently been like following on Instagram. And then we get this like flashback that is super long. Where it turns out that Nina was fucking Benny Ross, who was like Vanessa's little sibling or younger brother. And turns out that Vanessa's family has like a bunch of mental illness, and her mom killed herself, and her brother's now like schizophrenic and in an institution in Mendocino. If you're also from California, you know where that is. And let's see what happens. They go there. It turns out that, you know, Nina is basing all of this off of one conversation that she had with Benny, who is like 15 years old, about how his dad keeps a safe full of $1 million in their home. It seems like the worst con ever. And like just so poorly researched. Like, you don't even know if your target money is there, if it still exists. It's been like 10 years at least. And honestly, like, it's probably in stocks. It's probably in Bitcoin now. So I don't know what she's going to do about that. She thinks like there's $1 million of cash. That seems like the dumbest thing in the whole world to me, but like, what do I know? So they go there. They like put cameras everywhere. And this also seemed like a big hole, where, you know, this was a recurring theme where I kind of felt like Janelle Brown does not know what rich people do and how the ultra rich act. And I would be shocked if there was any wealthy person's home that did not have cameras in it. Definitely not wealthy like you're like a starting engineer at Google. Wealthy like the ultra rich that she's trying to portray. They are going to have cameras everywhere. There's no way that you can put a camera in their home without their cameras getting you first. So that seemed like another gaping hole. And then, let's see, turns out that the safe is empty. Vanessa's dad spent all the money, frittered it away on gambling. Turns out that Nina's mom and Vanessa's dad had like an affair, actually, and then Nina's mom, Lily, was trying to blackmail Vanessa's dad, and that's why they left town. And let's see what else. That's also partially why Vanessa's mom killed herself. So then Nina goes home to confront her mom, and then in the meantime, Lachlan fucks Vanessa, marries Vanessa, and then attempts to kill Vanessa. So this is like fuck, marry, kill all over again. You know, what a throwback to my high school days as well. It's like fake ring that Nina had, that's like a huge emerald. And Vanessa's taken in by it and she thinks it's real. This is another example of like something I don't really understand. I know that there are really convincing fakes out there. I know. But I do feel like you would at least get it appraised. Like, you would want to know more about it. I guess like the holes are that Vanessa is like kind of not doing so well mental health wise, and so maybe she's not taking like rational actions. She definitely isn't. She's doing all sorts of like bonkers shit, and like marrying this dude who she has barely met. Anyway, so, but that's basically how she gets onto him, is that some like lady who literally is like the wife of a Palo Alto VC venture capitalist comes up to Vanessa and is like, hey, that ring that you're flaunting is actually fake, so you better check this guy out. I hope you got a prenup, and then peace. And Vanessa goes to Nina, posts her bail, and is like, we have to take Lachlan down, essentially. Nina goes home. Turns out her mom and Lachlan have been conning her all along. Her mom's not sick, actually, anymore. Her mom had cancer, but then is, like, still in remission. And Lachlan is the one that called the cops on her, and like put her in prison. Oh yeah, sorry. Like when she went to confront her mom, she got put into prison because the cop showed up. And then let's see, she's like, fuck you, mom. Goes back with Vanessa to try to fix everything. Turns out Vanessa's pregnant. Yeah, it like totally goes off the rails at the end. And then they kill Lachlan, throw him in the lake, which is what happened to Vanessa's mom. And oh yeah, and then at the end, like the ending scene is that Benny comes home. Nina is at Stonehaven, which is like the estate at Lake Tahoe, and Vanessa has her kid, and Vanessa becomes like a really successful mommy blogger. And that was like her first occupation as well. She was like an Instagram influencer. Oh yeah, one thing that I did miss is that Benny was the one who found out that it was actually Nina. Nina was pretending to be someone else, Ashley, and like Vanessa posted a picture of Nina on her Instagram, and then Benny commented and said, like, Vanessa, what the fuck? That's Nina. Why are you hanging out with her? Okay, that is basically the plot. Sorry that I was like so scatterbrained, but I had some issues with both like the narrative and the plot itself. I feel like the plot like really did a disservice to the female characters, particularly Vanessa, but also Nina, in that it placed both of them at like the mercy of Lachlan, essentially, and I really wish that it had given them more power and agency. Like, I really think that Vanessa, as an ultra rich, ultra wealthy member, should have been able to spot people that were after her for her money, the fake emerald ring, like all the fake shit that Michael O'Brien slash Lachlan has been like spouting. Because I do think the ultra wealthy are actually like a very tight knit clan, and she would have known that like it was all bull. Or at least I hope so. But and I just think it would have been like made her like a cooler protagonist, where she actually had like some smarts about her. Like she was witty, and or maybe not witty, but she could at least be like shrewd and like actually know things. I'm kind of imagining like that scene in Legally Blonde.
Yes, of course.
With a half loop top stitching on the hem?
Absolutely. It's one of a kind.
It's impossible to use a half loop top stitching on low viscosity rayon. It would snag the fabric. And you
Because it's fucking hilarious. And I wish that that had been Vanessa. Like that maybe she was shallow and maybe she was entitled and privileged. But if she had just used any of those things to like her advantage, I think she would have been a much more interesting main character as opposed to being like so incredibly boring and annoying and naive. Same thing with Nina. Nina was so insecure about her like grifting and her con artist ways and thinking that she was so inferior. She had like an inferiority superiority complex, and like I get it. I get it. It's tough, but doesn't really make for a super interesting main character. I wish that she had just been more secure in her decisions, and that she also like could have seen the con that Lachlan and her mom were playing or something like that, and like been able to get around that. Okay, so the second thing that I found really annoying, which is like actually in the text, is that Vanessa's mom is like French adjacent, and so Vanessa sprinkles all of her narratives with these like stupid French phrases and French words that really don't need to be there. And that's not how like a super rich person would speak. Maybe they would be fluent in French, but like nobody just sprinkles it in randomly in their like English language narrative or like internal dialogue. So why Janelle? My question is why? Why did you have to make Vanessa talk so weird in this faux French, extremely unbelievable and annoying way? And if your goal was to make the writing super annoying, then like congratulations, you succeeded. But if your goal was to show how high class Vanessa was, you failed. And I'm sorry. I think that at the end, my last critique about how like, this book went down at the end, I thought that it was kind of like a bummer that Vanessa went back to blogging or like being an Instagram model or whatever, because there's like a brief part in it where she's making these drawings of like dresses. She's doing like kind of like off the cuff fashion designs, and like Lachlan is like, oh, those are really good. And like, yeah, maybe he's like lying through his teeth, but it would have been cool if she had actually had the security later, like after this whole thing went down, to be like, oh, actually, that is really good. This is my calling. Like, I love dresses and dressing up and like showing like my wardrobe off to people. So like I want to be a fashion designer, and that would have been really cool and like a really good growth trajectory instead of going back to just like being a mommy blogger on Instagram when like I'm not bashing mommy bloggers on Instagram, but the whole rest of the book was about her talking about how Instagram was so unhealthy for her personally and like so bad for her mental health and like not what she wanted out of her life. So I don't really get it. It didn't feel like she grew at all in that regard. She just like had a baby to fill the hole in her heart. This is how I would have improved the book. Literally cut out 200 pages. I don't need that shit. I don't have time for that. Make it gay. I think I would have loved if and Nina and Lachlan had originally been like the con pair, but like Nina wasn't super into Lachlan, and then they go to Stonehaven, and then it turns out that like Nina and Vanessa have this like torrid affair, and then that's what throws like the whole con like for a loop because they like start having this relationship, and then they like take Lachlan down. Like that would have been fun, and like I would have had a better time reading it than like this, you know, straight angst that is happening in this book. So those are all my suggestions. You know, the fashion designer thing I already said. Maybe take the French out of your writing. Maybe fill in the plot holes a little bit. You know, pave them over. So yeah, those are all my thoughts. Wow, I had like a pretty shitty conclusion here because I didn't finish taking my notes. To see you next time, or not, because I don't care. Bye!